Because if they had lost to Connecticut, I'm telling you, her job's on the line. They missed the playoffs, her job's on the line. It's not going, well, Caitlin was injured and now Sophie's injured. No, her job, and so
be connected on both ends of the floor. And when you're trying to beat really great teams, you got to play. You don't have to play perfect, but you got to play pretty damn close. And yeah.
I'm proud of you too. I'm so proud of you guys. I know that sometimes it sounds like just a word when we talk.
That's a PNW win! Oh my gosh. That one just aged me, but we're getting better.
In the heat of battle, Sophie Cunningham was on fire, hitting 80% from beyond the arc. Yet despite her perfect shot, her teammates ignored her. What followed was a shocking turn of events that could change the Fever season forever. It was the kind of game every fan dreams of, the kind where your team is on the verge of greatness, on a hot streak, pushing to claim a coveted playoff spot. The Indiana Fever were flying high with a 5-game win streak, and their most recent victory over the Seattle Storm cemented them as one of the most dangerous teams in the league. But as the dust settled after the game, there was a cloud of controversy hanging over the win. A perfect storm of decisions, missed opportunities, and growing tension. Sophie Cunningham was the star of the game, hitting 4 of 5 three-pointers at an 80% clip. Her shooting was flawless, and each shot seemed destined for the basket. But there was a catch. Her teammates failed to recognize her scorching performance. It raised eyebrows across the fan base. Why wasn't she getting the ball more? Why did Mitchell keep dominating despite struggling? Mitchell, a key offensive weapon for the Fever, had a dismal outing. She went 3 for 16 from the field and missed all 8 of her three-point attempts. Yet somehow, Mitchell remained on the court for nearly the entire game, her shooting slump ignored by the coaching staff. The Fever, despite Cunningham's brilliance, went on a brutal 0 for 17 shooting drought from beyond the arc during the same period. Meanwhile, Cunningham stood on the sidelines, watching her teammates miss shot after shot. The question on everyone's mind was, how could the team, knowing Cunningham was on fire, fail to get her the ball when she was clearly the most dangerous player on the floor? The outrage was palpable. Fans flooded social media, sharing stats and questioning Coach Stephanie White's decisions. One tweet by fan Andy went viral, highlighting the contrast. Cunningham, 80% from 3, the rest of the team, 0 for 17. The fans were incensed. How could such a critical error happen in a game that could define their season? Some even went so far as to compare Kelsey Mitchell's struggles to those of Caitlin Clark, calling for the Fever to find a new go-to closer. Analysts scrutinized Coach White's moves. Why hadn't she pulled Mitchell? Why didn't she adjust the offense to feature Cunningham, the team's most efficient shooter? Those questions lingered, and the heat was only just beginning. As the game wound down, it was clear that despite the win, something was wrong. The Fever had a glaring flaw, an inability to recognize and trust the hot hand. This breakdown in decision-making could cost them in tighter, more critical matchups down the line. And with a playoff push in full swing, the last thing Indiana needed was internal discord. Sophie Cunningham's performance, however, had a silver lining. It proved that she had what it took to be a leader. It was a call to arms for the Fever to adjust their strategy and give Cunningham the respect she deserved. The big question now was whether the team could fix this issue before it became a bigger problem, before the championship hopes began to fade away. As the Fever's season pressed forward, the lingering tension from the Seattle game was far from forgotten. Fans, analysts, and even former players began to question the team's internal dynamics. The mounting frustration wasn't just about one game. It was a signal of deeper issues that could jeopardize the Fever's championship aspirations. Coach Stephanie White found herself under a microscope. The criticisms of her decision-making grew louder, especially after it became clear that Mitchell's struggles had been allowed to continue unchecked. Mitchell, the Fever's supposed go-to scorer, had shot herself out of the game and was left in for far too long. Fans couldn't understand why the obvious solution, feeding the ball to the scorching hot Cunningham, hadn't been implemented. The reality was harsh. The Fever's coaching staff had failed to make the necessary adjustments. The inability to shift the offensive strategy around Cunningham The one player performing at an elite level raised serious doubts about whether Coach White truly understood the pulse of her team. Would she be able to trust Cunningham moving forward? Could the team's chemistry be salvaged before it destroyed their playoff hopes? The Fever were sitting pretty on a 10-game win streak, their best in over a decade. That was the good news. The bad news? Despite their success, they were vulnerable. They had an opportunity to build something special, but without cohesive play and sharp decision-making, their championship window was at risk of closing before it ever really opened. But then came Sophie Cunningham's bombshell. In a post-game interview that would send shockwaves through the Fever's locker room, Cunningham laid it all out. "I'm not here to just be a spot-up shooter," she said, with quiet but undeniable intensity. "I'm ready to be a leader on this team." The words dropped like a bombshell in the sports world. Was this a subtle shot at the coaching staff? Or was it a rallying cry to her teammates, one that dared them to see her as more than just a role player? Cunningham's comments ignited a firestorm of speculation. Her performance had been nothing short of spectacular, and yet she was being sidelined. Her call for a more prominent role in the offense was long overdue. If the Fever were going to challenge for the title, they would need to adjust. It wasn't just about Cunningham shooting anymore. It was about her stepping up as a leader, a player who could carry the team when others faltered. The weight of this moment wasn't lost on the locker room. Cunningham wasn't just venting, she was calling out the lack of trust and leadership. In the weeks that followed, fans and analysts would closely monitor how the Fever responded. Would they continue to ignore Cunningham, or would they embrace her as the true centerpiece of their offense? If the Fever were going to become a legitimate contender, they needed to adapt. The ball had to find its way to Cunningham's hands when it mattered most. She had proven she could be that player, consistent, deadly, and clutch under pressure. But was the team and coaching staff ready to put their trust in her? Or would the internal fractures continue to grow? What made this situation even more complex was the looming shadow of the Fever's other star player, Aaliyah Boston. Boston was holding down the paint, a force on defense and a reliable scorer in the post. But her presence raised the question of balance. How would the Fever strike the right mix of inside and outside play? How would they integrate Cunningham's shooting into a game plan that also featured Boston's dominance in the paint? These were the tough questions that had to be answered if the Fever were going to thrive. While Boston was a key piece, Cunningham had shown she was ready to shoulder more of the load. If the Fever could get their offense running through her, they could become a nightmare matchup for any team. And as the Fever pressed onward, the most intriguing question of all was whether Coach White would heed the lessons of the Seattle game. Would she be bold enough to make the hard decisions, to put her trust in Cunningham, and allow her to flourish as the team's primary option? Or would she continue to lean on the comfort of established players like Mitchell, even at the risk of losing valuable momentum? Sophie Cunningham's future with the Fever had just become a defining storyline of the 2025 season. No longer just a role player, Cunningham had firmly planted herself as a leader on the team. The fans were watching, the analysts were waiting, and the Fever season was hanging in the balance. Would they rise to the occasion, or would they let internal conflict tear them apart at the worst possible moment? And with that, the question remains: can the Fever fix their chemistry issues before it's too late? Will Coach White trust Sophie Cunningham to lead the team, or will internal struggles derail their season? One thing's for sure, the drama is far from over. If you enjoyed this story, like, comment, and subscribe to stay updated on the next chapter in this wild ride. Until next time.